So I was leaving a restaurant with my wife earlier today, and I saw a father, and he had two daughters. And the daughters must have been somewhere between 10 and 14 years old, and there was two of them. And I was making an assumption that these were his daughters, but it looked like a dad and the daughters. And as my wife was headed out to the car in the parking lot, I said, "Babe, I need to talk to this gentleman here because I've got daughters, and I'm intentional about being a good father, and I'm intentional about learning from people that have done things right." And I don't know if the guy's a good father or not, but the way his daughters were looking at him led me to believe that they had respect and that they had love. And it wasn't out of fear. It felt like it was out of love. So I said, "Babe, it's going to eat at me. You go to the car. I need to go back and see this gentleman." And so I walked up to their table and I said to him, I said, "Listen, sir, I'm just making an assumption that these are your daughters. And I see the way that they're looking at you and it looks like you're doing something right. Can you give me tips? I've got a 2 and a 1-year-old daughter, and I want to be the best dad I could be. And maybe you could give me some cheat code, or maybe you should give me a lesson." And it was interesting what he said. He said, "That's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked. Once a week, we will go to eat together, and it won't be because of something good or something bad. We will just go to eat together, and I will intentionally listen to my daughters. And I will just say, 'So, what do you have on your mind?' And I'm here to listen." And he says, "I don't speak, I listen." And he said most parents will get together with their kids when they do something wrong, or they'll go out with their kids to do something really fun, but they don't just sit down and have regular intervals where they intentionally listen to their children. And man, I can tell you this, you don't make it to be 40-year-old as a guy and think back to all the times you didn't listen properly in your life, or the times where you weren't intentional about your outcome and you were just kind of accidental, or you didn't have purpose for what it is that you were doing. And it made me think about intentionality, just being intentional overall. And how many times I went into a conversation, whether it was for business or personal, where I was just talking and they were talking, and then I said something, and then they said something, but I wasn't intentional. And I remember when my past mentor, he said, when we make a phone call together, make sure that you tell me if this is a 2-minute, a 20-minute, or a 2-hour meeting. And that'll tell me what you need from me so that I could be the best coach back to you. And I really appreciate him for doing that because that's intentional. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to plan everything in your life, although planning is great. You don't have to be prepared for every step of your life, although preparation is amazing. But you do have to speak with a level of intentionality, especially if you're looking to grow and become a leader. If you're watching content like this, you're probably trying to grow as a leader. Maybe there's some entertainment value here, but most of the time it's because we're trying to advance and we're trying to learn and we're trying to improve. And in that process of improving, you could talk to people that are above you, at the same level of you, or below you. If you talk to people most of the time that are below you in life status or rankings or income or where they are in their life, then you're going to tend to go down. Your associations will start dropping. And if you talk to everybody at the same level as you, you'll hear many different opinions and you'll typically be confused. But if you want to go up, you have to talk to people that are ahead of you. The problem is that when you talk to people ahead of you, you can't be casual in these processes and you can't be accidental. You have to be intentional. When I walked up to that gentleman today, I don't know how much money he makes, I don't know how successful he is, and I don't fully even know he was a great parent. But his name's Orlando. If he's listening out there, I just want you to know that I love the value. I love the way you looked me in the eye. I loved what you said. I did not get Orlando's information, but I wish nothing but love to Orlando and his two daughters because I want to listen to that advice. And I thought back to the number of times that you would sit down with a child or somebody, a subordinate or something, and maybe it's because they did something wrong. And you say, "Hey, could you come in my office and let's talk?" Or you go home and you say, "We need to talk when we get home. You're not doing your chores or you're not doing something right." But that intentionality helped me out. And that started getting me thinking of a couple areas of intentionality that might provide some value to you. One is energy. This is very important. I didn't have energy growing up. I had endurance, I had work ethic, but I didn't have like a level of energy where I wouldn't say I'm an energetic, charismatic person. No. And I didn't see myself as somebody that would have that, but I learned how to employ energy into my life, and it has to be done intentionally. You can't accidentally have a lot of energy. There's a few people that may naturally in your life have this, maybe they're like the Tasmanian devil and they've got tons of energy and they walk into the room and they're fired up. But I bet even those people have taken time to pump themselves up, to get clear in their life, to get focused, to get excited. And if they do it naturally, awesome. I am not a naturally energetic person. I have to be congruent and I have to be intentional with my energy. Think of energy in three phases. You could have poor energy or a poor attitude, that's the bottom. You could be neutral and be in the middle and it's not bad or it's not good, you're just there. Or you could have great energy. Typically, people think energy falls into two categories, either bad energy or bad attitude and good energy or good attitude, when in reality, I think that there's three levels. I think the majority of people are not negative or positive. I think they're neutral. I think they're in the middle. I think that they do life and they do the basics and they do the minimum. They don't want to do too much because then people will expect a lot more out of them. And they don't want to be disrespectful or mean because they don't want to rub people the wrong way. So they kind of stay right in the middle. And I want to challenge you. And I want to challenge you to raise your level of energy. And I think that just even watching Donald Trump come into office and watching the amount of energy that he employs, even if you're not a fan of Donald Trump, you have to admit that there's a difference between having Donald Trump as your president and having Joe Biden as your president. Not whether you're Republican or Democrat, I'm sure you have a lot of opinions there, but I'm talking about just the level of energy. Think about somebody in your life that when you look at your phone, when your phone rings, and you see that person's name on your phone, and you get really excited when you hear that person's name, or they bring energy to you because they're a fired up type of individual. You probably know what I'm talking about. But then you also know people that you see on your phone, when you see their name, you're like, I'll call them later, or I got to deal with this later. And typically it's because of energy. So make sure that you personally watch that level of energy. Also, an area to be intentional about in your life is the direction that your life is headed in, which direction it's going in. Oftentimes on our content, we'll talk about that you're the average of the books that you read, the people that you hang out with, and the meetings that you attend. If you're intentional about where your life is headed, you will not just read books, but you will read the right books. If you're intentional about where your life is headed, you don't just attend meetings and attend conferences because you have extra time. You attend these because you're trying to learn and improve in a certain area. And if you know where your life is going in the direction of your life, you will intentionally choose people to be around you for that season of your life because they add the most value to your life. We've all selected friends casually. We've all attended a party or a meeting or gone to somebody's house casually. And we've all probably read a book that we thought sounded great, but we didn't really have an intention behind it. And so I want to challenge you to start choosing your life and choosing the direction of your life with a little bit more intention on your energy, a little bit more intention on the direction you're going. And you may start conversations like this. Last tip that I'll give you is, when I would talk to people, and sometimes they're friendship relationships and sometimes they're business relationships, but what happens is the older that you get, the more you realize that your time is very valuable. And although we all have the same amount of hours in the day, many of us misuse our time, and we have casual and unconstructive conversations that don't really lead anywhere. They're just kind of passing time type conversations. And I love having LeBron and MJ GOAT debates, and I love talking in the office and talking about the weather or anything like that. Sure, that stuff comes up. But I don't want to major in that. And so one of the things that could help you out when you're starting a conversation is this, asking 3 questions. Number 1, what's the outcome for the conversation? So whether you want to talk to somebody or they want to talk to you, simply ask, would you mind if I take notes? Or if you're not a note-taking type person, you could just say this verbally. But I've started doing this more often in my conversation with just, so what's our outcome today? What would you like to accomplish? And not, what's our outcome? You're wasting my time. No, not like that. What's your outcome today? What are you trying to accomplish? And then that way I could hear from the other person and we could get to what they're trying to accomplish in that conversation, and we could be more intentional about it. You may ask question number 2, what are your expectations of me? What are your expectations of me in this conversation? Are you looking for me to do something? Do you want me to know something? Are you just looking for my advice? Or maybe it's none of the above and I'm completely misreading why we are talking, and you could let me know. What are your expectations of me? And then finally, the last question that I would ask is, what's most important to you on this subject? And that way people feel heard. And many times we've made mistakes as leaders not listening to people. Many times we just told them what we wanted them to hear but didn't listen to their responses back. It's okay. We can't go back and fix all of that, but we can be more intentional moving forward. So overall, from Orlando at the lunch that I saw when he was intentional with his daughters, and I saw the love and I saw how they were paying attention, and I wanted to get better in that area for myself. I know I just have a 2 and a 1-year-old, but anybody that has little kids today, you know these kids are so advanced. They're already having conversations. You don't understand half the words that they're using, but I intentionally want to be a good father. I intentionally want to be a good husband to my wife. I intentionally want to be a good leader to my organization. I intentionally want to be a great citizen in the United States of America and be a global person and be a good person to anybody around the world that I meet, but it's not going to come by accident. My energy and the direction of my life and the energy that you have in the direction of your life is not going to just accomplish itself. It's got to be done with intentionality. And I hope that this helps you out, and I hope that you take intentionality a little bit more seriously.